There you go.
Oh boy, here I am. All right, well tonight, glad y'all could be here with us. We have Paul Workman and Jay Wiley. They'll be debating. Mr. Mike Lee, of course, he'll be on the panel along with Gavino, Lulac, 2831, is it?
4861.
4861. It used to be just 12.
Used to be District 12.
Okay, well that's all I remember you most from. Anyway, I appreciate y'all coming. This ought to be good. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Lee.
Yes, good evening.
Good night, folks.
Tonight we have debate between incumbent State Representative Paul Workman and his challenger Jay Wiley for House Representative seat District number 47. And the candidates already have the ground rules, which are to you have 2 minutes for opening statement. Then we have questions. You have 2 minutes for answers and 1 minute for rebuttal. This is State Representative Workman on my right and challenger Jay Wiley on my left. Gentlemen, we've decided that it's been decided that the incumbent will go first, so it's 2 minute opening statement from Mr. Workman.
Well, thank you, Michael. Gavino, thank y'all for doing this. This is good. It's important that the citizens are involved in the election and political process, and that they get an opportunity to weigh in on the issues that face our state. So a little background about me. I was born and raised in Corpus Christi, and we've been in the Austin area now for 33 years. I've been in the construction business all my life, some 43 years, most of that time as the owner of my own construction company. And I'm in my third term as a state representative representing western and southern Travis County. Some of the things that we've accomplished as a state representative included creating the first ever 911 service district for the Capital Area Council of Governments, which has always been done through the state comptroller. Now is done directly, and it meant more money of the money that was already being collected is go into 911 services, improving that. We also passed legislation to help people who have are in captive propane systems so that they have a better idea of the charges that they're being charged for their propane. For the first time ever since the founding of our state, we removed sovereign immunity from the state on matters of contract. It was a big deal.
If we could just look at over there by number 3, that way, there you go.
Oh, okay. And we voted for the tax relief that came about this session, including a 25% decrease in the franchise tax, as well as a increase in the homestead exemption for homeowners. And we worked this last session a lot on Convention of the States, Article 5. I passed a resolution out of the House with 100 votes calling for a balanced budget amendment for the U.S. Constitution. If the citizens will allow me, I'll go back. There's some things that I've got that I want to do. The first thing we're going to do, the first day we can file legislation, we're going to file legislation to end sanctuary cities in the state of Texas once and for all. I was disappointed to hear that all of the sheriffs, the Democratic sheriffs running for that seat here in Travis County, say that they will not support the sanctuary city. They will support the sanctuary city and not respond to the ICE detainer orders. We will stop that. I will work on transportation. We've got a number of issues that have to be done, and I've been named to the Select Committee on Transportation Planning, and as a part of that, we'll have an opportunity to make sure that the funds that are being distributed under the new funds going to TxDOT, that a fair share will come to western Travis County to deal with the road issues there, which include things like the Wyatt Oak Hill, SH 45, Loop 360, and Highway 620. We're going to work on appraisal reform. There's a lot to be done on appraisal reform, and we think that there's some stuff on appraisal review boards that needs to be done, so we're going to do that. We're also going to continue our work on the Convention of States. I've already committed to the governor to help him with the 9 points that he's trying to accomplish for conventions of the states. And then finally, I'm going to continue to work on Austin Energy to make sure that Austin Energy maintains affordable rates for all of the citizens of this area.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you,
Ronnie, you
and,
got 4 minutes.
Mr.
and
All right.
let me just say this, welcome back to the show, because you've been at
Yeah.
our show the last time, the third time. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, my name's Jay Wiley. I'm a candidate for HD 47, and I grew, just a little bit about me. I grew up down in Galveston, raised by a single mom, and what really changed my life was when I was about 13. I picked up a copy of Conscience of a Conservative by Barry Goldwater, and it really changed my thinking. I knew from that point on that liberty and limited government was going to be the cause of my life, and it has been. I ended up going to the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina. And the Citadel is really a leadership laboratory. The purpose of it is to tear down the person that walks in that door and to rebuild them in the image of a Citadel man. And that's exactly what happened with me. I was recruited out of the Citadel to then go work for Senator Phil Gramm in Washington, and I worked on his staff. And he was very much a mentor to me in a lot of ways. I learned a lot about economics from him. I learned a lot about public service from him. He was one of the folks that really convinced me that in order to be a better foot soldier in the conservative movement, I should go to law school. So I went to law school, got a law degree, and went on to serve as a research fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. I served as a chief of staff in the Texas legislature. In recent years, my wife who's an OB-GYN, she's here in the crowd today, we started a concierge medical practice. And so it's a patient-centered model that that provides a level of care that you won't get from the top-down bureaucratic model. So that's what I do. I do the business and the marketing and the legal work for the practice, and Sally does the medical. I ran for city council in 2014 in the 10-1 and lost that race by 90 votes out of 16,000. But people encouraged me to stay involved and to get in this race because the things that I wanted to work on, property tax relief, annexation reform, pushing back against big government at the city level, I can do all those things and more at the state level. So people encourage me to do this because I think that conservatives, especially in Travis County, are really tired of politicians that say one thing on the campaign trail and then do something very different once elected. And, I'm glad Paul's, talking about sanctuary cities now. It's a good thing. Many of us have been talking about this for a long time. I think he needs to answer something that he doesn't want to answer, and that is why he would introduce a bill that would grant legal status to illegal aliens. That's exactly what he did a few years ago. And I think he needs to answer for that.
You got 2 more minutes.
Well, I'm good.
Paul, would you like to respond?
I'll give Paul my 2 minutes to answer that question.
Okay.
Well, of course, Jay knows that nothing you can do at the state legislature can grant amnesty to illegal aliens.
I haven't said amnesty, have I?
And so what we've got to do is we've got to work on border security, and I've been a stalwart in trying to do things about border security. Voted for the $800 million additional money going to border security, and been down there several times to make sure that what's going on down there is what we need to do. And once we get the border secure, then we can talk about what to do with the folks that are here.
Well, that's what you call a straw man, because I didn't mention amnesty. I'm talking about pro-illegal immigrant status. Now, what Texas can do is give Texas ID cards to illegal aliens. Texas can start a guest worker program, and your bill did those very things. So, this is a straw man. I know you got a quote from the governor's office about how you're not for amnesty, but why would you grant legal status to illegal aliens in the state of Texas?
Well, I think what we're trying to do here is make something out of nothing that's here. And, this was a bill that was filed 3 sessions ago. It hasn't been filed since then. And what we need to do is we have to continue to focus on border security. And you can call it a straw man if you want to, but that bill also provided for a $10,000 fine for anyone who was to knowingly hire an illegal alien. So, I don't know where you're coming from on that, but.
Well, I think that answer speaks for itself.
Something that's really close to me is education. Do either of you gentlemen, I'd like to know your position on education, because I really have been shocked lately to learn that the level of illiteracy in the African American community. And it disturbs me. I think it's something that needs to be addressed at whatever level would be most effective. What would be your position on things that could be done in the field of education to make education more effective?
Well, if you're asking me, I think, we have to provide as much parental choice on education as possible. And that means not only public school and district transfers and inter-district transfers, but charter schools, private school, and homeschooling all have to be choices that the parents can make. And we've got to get parents more involved in their children's education. And so, and I support all of the forms of the parental choice that have come along, and there will be.
I don't think there's a problem in education that can't be solved through choice. I think choice is as close to a magic bullet as we're ever going to get in education. When we've got kids locked in failing schools, and I come from one of those schools, the schools that I grew up in Galveston were the kind of schools they make movies about, literally. Stabbings and shootings, pregnancy at 12, gang warfare, metal detectors. I literally grew up with this. So I think I can speak with some clarity on how important it is we have choice so that kids aren't locked in failing schools. I think people have called it the civil rights movement of the 21st century. I don't disagree. I will be a full-throated supporter of choice in education. And I hope, hope we agree on that.
There's another thing that's really close to my heart, and that is I'm really pretty much a die-hearted Republican. And I'm concerned about the party growing, because there's a perception that ours is a party of just a bunch of old white guys, and that there's hostility toward minorities and whatnot. In the work I do for the Travis County Republican Party, I do a lot of outreach in the African American community, and it's sometimes downright hostile over there. And I was wondering if either of you, if you had any ideas about what could be done at the state level to try to reduce the stigma that we have.
Well, I'm a liberty candidate. I think that, economic liberty means liberty for everyone. So I'm not that interested in talking to people. I think I'm not interested in the bigotry, I think, that comes along with low expectations. I want to put everyone on the same level playing field. And I think that means first talking to them like they're equals, because they are equals. Everyone is equal under the law. So I'm not interested in putting people in little groups and then trying to build a coalition from those groups. I know we hear a lot of that from the left, and the old saying in politics is that, politics is about addition, not subtraction. And what they're saying is you get this group, and this group, and this group, and you put them together, and that's a governing coalition. I think that's wrong. I think it's actually not about addition or subtraction. I think it's about multiplication. And what I mean by that is you inspire people through ideas. Ideas are what inspire people. Reagan did it. I think we're watching it right now with Ted Cruz. I think you inspire people and you multiply your forces that way. And the only way to inspire people is to speak from the heart and to speak about the things that you're passionate about. And I'm certainly passionate about limited government and equality under the law.
Well, I know that there's, at the state Republican Party, there's an outreach director, several actually, Hispanic, African American, and an Asian outreach director, and they need to be doing more things to be sure that we include all people in the Republican tent, because that's certainly what we want. And like Jay, certainly economic freedom is something that that speaks to everyone and that everyone can benefit from. And so I support the efforts that we're doing, and I'm glad, Mike, that you're involved in that process here at Travis County for that reason.
Okay, going back to the elected office, if in your case, if you were to be elected, what bills or issues would you make at the upcoming legislation priority, and you would tell the constituents out there that because of these three or whatever number of issues, you are willing to carry the banner is why you want to be elected for this office.
That's real easy. Property tax relief. Homeowners in Travis County are just getting absolutely annihilated on property taxes. And we need leadership on that. We've got 6 House seats in Travis County. 5 of them are liberal Democrats. Okay? So who we elect in this one Republican seat needs to fight extra hard and be extra vocal on property taxes. I was disappointed that Paul Workman favors sales tax relief over property tax relief. I think that's the wrong way to go, and I think it's hurting taxpayers. I talk to people every day at their doors who can't afford their bills anymore. We hear a lot about the 180 people or so a day that are moving into Austin, but we don't hear as much about the 60 or so people that are leaving because they can't afford it anymore. So property tax relief, I absolutely am going to be a warrior on, and that's what I want to work on. in the
But what would
legislature.
you recommend as a tax relief proposal?
We need appraisal reform, certainly. In the long run, what I would like to see is us to abolish the entire property tax system we have in the state of Texas. It's a bold proposal. It won't happen overnight, and it'll take a lot of pushing to get it done. But it's immoral for us to not own our homes, to lease them from the state government. I think that it's absolutely immoral to have a property tax system that runs old people out because they can't afford their homes anymore. So it certainly affects the elderly. Economists have studied this, and they said that it would add between 1.5 and 4.7% to the average family income in the state of Texas. We'd abolish all 254 tax appraisal districts in the state of Texas. We instead move to a reformed sales tax, and we add a couple of pennies onto the sales tax. That's a fairer way to do taxation than on a fixed asset like your home. It's a fairer way to do taxation. So I support in the long run, and we'll phase it in over several years, probably 15 years we'll phase it in. But I would like to see us abolish the property tax system in the state of Texas, one of the most burdensome in the entire country.
Okay. Mr. Workman, what would you, if reelected, would make or continue make priorities in this upcoming legislation to, again, convince your constituents that because of these issues and topics, you should be reelected to continue to represent them?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's some really important things that have to happen. One, we have to continue to work on water, and we were able to assist in the revision of the water plan that was just approved by the TCEQ, which changed the trigger from 600,000 acre feet to 900,000 acre feet in the Highland Lakes, and we have to continue to do that. Transportation is a huge issue for our district. We've got some really serious congestion issues, and we're working on a number of things that we're going to do that to help with that. And as I mentioned, appraisal reform is a big deal. Yeah, the property tax system in our state is not the best, of course, certainly. But whether or not you can abolish that, I don't know. And whether you could abolish it and replace it with 2 cents of sales tax, I'm not sure that's possible. In any event, we need to work on that. And then Austin Energy, we're going to continue to push on Austin Energy to try to make sure that they remain affordable. And for those folks that are outside of the city limits, but in the Austin Energy service area, we're going to work hard to make sure that they're not overcharged.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the appraisal? What type of appraisal system do you believe, or would you push to be able to deliver that fair and equitable appraisal, if you will? Or to touch on what's wrong with it, like you mentioned, it needs repairing. What would you say needs repairing and how?
The Constitution requires that it be equal and uniform. And over the last number of years, the comptroller has really worked hard to try to get to a point where the appraisals are equal and uniform. And there's been some pushback at the city of Austin against commercial properties, which they think have been undervalued. I don't think so, but they push back on that. But the big issue has to do with the appraisal review boards, the way they're selected, the way they're operated. They're housed at the appraisal review board. They're selected by the board members are selected by the appraisal review, the district, and they need to be an independent body so that they're not just going off of what the appraisal district is telling them. And so the appraisal review board is the area where we need to spend the most of the time to make sure that people get a fair hearing when they go to protest their taxes.
And you're right. I'm paying $10,000 this year for 2 properties that I have because I happen to live in the inner city of East Austin. And that's one of the things that I meant, is I think that we can coexist. If you can build an urban home next to a home like mine today, you can coexist. We should be able to coexist, because right now that's what's driving us out of our own neighborhood, is the increase in property taxes. But in other states, you appraise properties based on their true value, and then you go to the next one and you review it, and you don't, it's not this.
See, it's part of the problem is it's such an arbitrary system.
Yeah.
There are a lot of neighborhoods in Cedar Park and Leander that are split in half by the county line. Williamson, one half of the street is on Williamson County, the other half's in Travis. Same homes built by the same people, same time, same floor plans.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, the ones in Williamson County are appraised cheaper than Travis. It's an arbitrary number. It's an imaginary number. And, as long as we have Speaker Strauss and his leadership team in the House, they are not interested in property tax relief. In fact, last session, they supported sales tax relief over property tax relief. And Paul Workman supported that, and I'd like to know why that is. We've got such a terrible problem, especially in Travis County. Why would you support sales tax relief over property tax relief?
Well, if I'm supposed to respond to
Sure.
that, I'd be happy to, because I felt like that the sales tax would benefit more people throughout the state than the increase in the appraisal, the increase in the deduction that was offered under the deal. So I felt like that sales tax was a better way, provide more savings to more people.
I think taxpayers disagree, but we can move on.
I know that, again, as Austin continues to grow, not only the city, but the area, the metro area, as it grows, we are always looking for ways to enter into local agreements so we don't duplicate services. And I'll begin with you. Have you, in your role at the state, seen any of these duplications that you could say, we worked on eliminating or reducing at the state, that you could speak of? Or
At the state, well, I could speak to the Capital Area Council of Governments, because I serve as an advisory member of the Capital Area Council of Governments, which is a great organization that brings together the cities and counties from a 10-county region, and they share ideas and help each other in what they need to do. A lot of emergency service stuff overlaps. 911 services are all handled through CapCog, and so there's a lot of that going on at the county level and the city levels.
Okay. Are we going to get our audience?
Yeah, you ready for that already?
No, well, do you want to
Yeah, sure.
respond to that?
What I would like to do is enact some very simple budget reforms at the state level. We lock in the state spending cap at population growth plus inflation, okay? We also go to zero-based budgeting at the state level so that we build budgets from the bottom up based on need, okay? We do these things and we could save tens of billions of dollars in the state budget. We provide property tax relief with those savings, and we seal the border and monitor it using 21st century technology. That's what I want to do with the budget reforms that we can very easily enact.
I had a question. Speaking of getting legislation passed, how important is it to establish relationships with your fellow legislators? And do you have those such relationships, or is it hard to build those? I'd like for someone to respond to that.
Well, sure. I mean, it obviously takes 76 of your colleagues to pass legislation through the House, and then it still has to go over to the Senate. And so you have to have relationships at the Senate as well. So when you have a piece of legislation that you want to get passed, I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, you have to build relationships. You have to go and convince your colleagues that what you're trying to do is worthwhile. And so you have to have relationships. If you don't have relationships with enough members, then you don't go anywhere.
Well, there's a core group of conservatives in the House that I'll certainly be a part of. It's really kind of a liberty caucus in the House. And, what you do is you build the grassroots coalitions at the grassroots level, and you convince them to lean on their members is what you do. And that's exactly what I hope to do. I agree with Thomas Jefferson when he said that one principled man is a majority. Now, I think we need more principled people in the House. We've got a great Senate, led by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and a lot of great liberty-minded members of the Senate. We've got great leadership over there, and conservative legislation sails through the Senate. Where we have the problem is the House, because we have a Speaker who is elected by all the Democrats and only 12 Republicans. Okay? And since then, it's been one conservative reform after another getting scuttled. And we need to do away with that. And so that's why I'm voting against Speaker Strauss.
Okay. I have a question, and it Pokey's favorite one. What is your position on legalization of marijuana? Okay. Because Abbott signed a bill this last session allowing the liquid,
The use of oil.
the use of oil for medication for patients, and some people saw that as a first step in the direction of Colorado and all these other states. What's your position on that? And then,
Well, I think, do you want to go first? Well, I think that, I support medical cannabis. I do. I've talked with many folks in this movement who have children with autism, that, studies have been done that this helps them. So medical cannabis, I support. I support decriminalization of small amounts of marijuana. I don't know much about this subject because I've never tried marijuana, but I don't support full legalization. I'm not there. But I think it's perfectly reasonable, as the governor and so many other, former Governor Perry and so many others agree, that decriminalization is something that we need to move toward. So that's why I support that.
I'm absolutely against the legalization of marijuana in the state of Texas. I support Colorado's right to do that. I just don't think it's the thing we should do in the state of Texas. Now, 10 years from now, Colorado may prove to be just fine. I don't know, but I think it's an awful idea, and I would be absolutely opposed to it. I did support the use of oils for cannabis for the treatment of autism and some of these other deals. So I think that's okay as long as it's controlled properly and prescribed by physicians.
Well, let me ask you this same question from a different angle, because my Republican friends were always, in the wealthy limelight. What if you were to look at the revenue that has been coming in through the sales in these states, which, from what I understand, have just busted the seams, and provides the reduction in property taxes and reductions in this. So is that, for either of you, enough to even consider it?
It's not enough for me to go full legalization.
Okay.
I think that the studies have been shown that there are some medical benefits to medical cannabis, and I think that decriminalization is the way to go, so we don't send people to prison for minor possessions. But full legalization, I'm just not there.
I don't think that there's been enough revenue, even in Colorado and these other places where it's legal. Certainly, it wouldn't have any impact in the state of Texas, and it's just not a good idea.
We're halfway home with regards to the end of the show, and this may be an appropriate time to take a question or two from the audience.
Anybody want to ask a question? Microphone back there. I was standing up there, but I had to give me a chair.
I thought someone had a question out there.
Yeah, I know they do.
It is
Well,
over
ask you,
here.
hey, TJ, Lawrence. Well, I will.
All right.
Why'd y'all put it so far away? Huh? It's kind of hard on me to walk this far, and my voice, you can usually hear it anyway. We'll go back to Mr. Wiley, if you will. If you don't appreciate Representative Workman's ideas on dealing with the illegals, could you elaborate on what you would do about it?
I think we enforce the law. We have laws in place. Every time you get pulled over by the police for speeding or what have you, the first thing they do is they ask for your driver's license and your registration. Why? So that they can see if you have a warrant out for your arrest. So, this notion that we'll be kicking, and Paul Workman has said this as recently as a couple of weeks ago, that we want to kick in the doors of everyone with Hispanic surnames. That's ridiculous. We want to enforce the law. We turn them over to ICE, and we send them back to their country of origin. Now, in the meantime, we also build a wall, and we enforce the borders. Okay? If we do this, won't happen overnight, but we do this over time, we'll see a change. And that's what we need to do. We need to enforce the law. We don't have a sovereign nation if we don't enforce our borders. So we have the laws in place already. We just need to enforce them, that's all. And we need the courage. We need to elect the people with courage to enforce the law and not worry about what the statesman is going to write about them and not worry about what they'll say at the cocktail parties downtown. We just need to have people with courage to do what they say they're going to do.
It's interesting because this is a federal issue. Enforcing the federal laws, immigration laws, is a federal issue, not a state issue. And I think Mr. Wiley's response to the 2 million or so illegal aliens that are in the state of Texas is to load them up on buses and haul them south. He hasn't offered any other option to deal with those folks that are here, other than building a wall. And, you know, we've got to secure the border.
They're already here.
But they're here. And so, you know.
They're driving around, they're, at least get them insured or something. Anyway, that's what, I wanted to go on, but if anybody else want to ask a question?
I have a question. Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
There you, no, go ahead.
Hi, guys.
TJ.
I know where Paul stands on this. I don't know where Jay stands on this. And that's this, and I think it's going to be a big push this session after the governor came out with his Article 5 convention stuff. Paul, I'd like you again to explain to me how come you think they will, if we pass different constitution than we have, that the federal government is any more likely to abide by that than they don't abide by the one we have. And Jay, I'd like for you to know from you where you stand on the Article 5 convention.
Well, it's not going to be a different constitution, TJ. It will be an amendment to the one we have. And it is true that the federal government has not been great about following the Constitution. Our Supreme Court has been awful about that. But so has Congress and so has our executive branch. They've all done that. But the alternative is to do nothing and allow it to keep on the way it is. And Article 5 convention, if we could ever get to a point where we'd have an Article 5 convention, we would change the Constitution and they would have to follow that. And I think that that's a very worthwhile effort, and we need to continue to push to do that.
Well, you're right, TJ, that the feds aren't following the law now as it is. So I understand the skepticism over changing the Constitution and then having them then wake up and start following the law. I think an Article 5 Constitution is worth doing. I think it's but I think it's part of a many-layered approach. We need to elect a president who's going to faithfully enforce the laws. I'm supporting Ted Cruz for president. We need to have judges that faithfully enforce the law, strict constitutionalist judges. We need to elect people of courage to Congress. It's not one thing. It's a falsity to say that there's just one thing we can do and that an Article 5 convention would do all that. It wouldn't do all that, but it's a part, I think it's worth doing. I think it's a part of many things that we need to do. And it's why activists like you, TJ, and me need to get to work and make sure that our elected officials know where we stand on this stuff. But I do think an Article 5 convention is worth doing. It's not going to solve all our problems, though.
So you
Nothing
voted
will.
for an Article 5?
I'm for it.
Have you checked with Kathy Adams on that?
What was that? I don't understand that.
Well, Kathy Adams is violently opposed to Article 5 conventions.
Okay, what's your point, Paul?
Well, she supports you. And,
That's right.
yeah,
She
so
does
I just
support me.
wondered
I have
if
a
you-
lot of endorsements. Empower Texans is
Well,
supporting me.
You answer
Young
my
conservatives
question.
of
Have you
Texas
checked
are
with her
supporting
about
me.
it? Because if you're
The
for Article 5, she's probably
Concerned
not going to
Women
be
for
supporting you
Concerned
anymore.
Women for America are supporting me. We have a lot of endorsements, Paul. I know you're trying to be cute.
I'm not
but that's
trying to be
okay.
cute, Jay.
That's
I'm
okay,
just
Paul.
asking you a question. You say on the one hand that
Paul,
you've
I've got a
some-
lot of people that support me. You've got a lot of people that support you, too.
Yeah.
Okay? So
I'm
what's
just
your
trying,
point?
my point is that Kathy Adams is
I
violently
understand.
opposed to Article 5,
Okay,
and yes,
Paul.
she's your
That's-
supporter.
That's fine. I have
And
a lot of
just wanna know if
supporters
you
who
checked
support
them.
limited government, and they're tired of politicians like you. They're tired of them. They're tired of politicians that say one thing and don't get it done when they get elected. They're tired of it, Paul. I've seen it door to door. Now, you want to get cute? Let's get cute, okay?
We all have supporters that don't always agree with us. I got plenty of them down here at the trailer park, I tell you what.
Well, to me, I think it's an exciting discussion and a very healthy one because I'm a Democrat and it's, I love
I think you're a
seeing the
Democrat in name
Republicans
only.
Get at it, go where the
dyno.
rubber beats the road, But no, I think that this is one great thing about our country and being free is that we're able to agree to disagree in a democratic society. And we are, the voters, the constituents are out there, and they can choose to vote or not to vote. And those that get involved in whatever. But this is a whole process that we're entering into, because basically what both of y'all are asking us, the taxpayers, is to entrust you to manage our tax dollars, to manage our public policies, and it's a very, very important role. And it's not a 9 to 5, like we had talked with the other candidates before. It's a 24/7, and you know that as well. It's a 24/7. But the thing that I like to ask of you is because of your area is growing and continues to grow a lot. It's growing a lot. And how is it that you, for example, as LULAC, we've gotten calls about single-member districts in Leander. Yeah, in Leander.
But before you go on to that, I'm going to go back and sit down, but I want to hear about the environmental issues and my truck driving issues. You going to pay some streets for us and make them free? I got to sit down.
Okay.
Well, I was just endorsed.
Anybody else?
I was just endorsed today by Texans for Toll-Free Highways and Turf, and these are some of the biggest anti-toll activists in the state. They've endorsed me because Paul Workman supports tollways. So, talk about making roads free. I support that. Since we're on the subject of endorsements.
Well, we weren't on the subject of endorsements, but
Well, I do support toll roads, and it's the concept of user fees and paying for the services that you get from the government is a very conservative thing, and that's what toll roads do. You have to pay for the services that you use, and yes, I support toll roads.
right?
There's someone who has
I'm
a
Mike
question.
Dominguez, Precinct Chairman,
All right.
218.
Nice to see you, young man.
Nice to see you, Jay. Nice to see you, Paul. I guess one of my critiques on both sides is just that campaigning and governing are two different things. Campaign sound bites always sound good, but when you're there and you have a speaker, which most likely will be Speaker Strauss, I don't know how the both of you will vote if you want to go on record on that, but if you isolate the speaker, there's very little chance that your public policy will get through. And you do have to work on both sides of the aisle. My disappointment with Travis County delegation is that they go up there and Austin is always on the losing side. Property taxes, there might be a little bit of relief, but it doesn't help anybody in Austin. Doesn't help the students, it doesn't help the east side. As far as education, I don't see any magnet schools. I don't see any public-private partnerships happening. I hear we have to tax or not tax. And I think that we could actually have different revenue streams than just tax or no tax. And I just don't feel that the Austin residents in Travis County are fully represented because you guys are up there at the state level, and once you get a chairmanship or whatever, you have to deal with all 254 counties. So my question is, how would you represent Travis County, but at the same time, governing and reaching out to everyone that you need to? And that means toll roads, because we have a lot of them, and that means education, that means property tax, means UT, top 10% rule, it means all of that, and we're right in the heart of it. And sometimes I just don't think that we get the short end of the stick. And so, you guys would like to.
Well, I do think that your premise that Austin always gets the short end of the stick is not necessarily the case. So there are a lot of charter schools in East Austin, and there's a waiting list for those over there. And I think that there's a lot going on in that respect. But you're right, there's a lot that has to be done for the district and for Travis County as a member of the Travis County delegation, and it's not just about the state level. So that's why I push back against Austin Energy. That's why I push back against the city of Austin on other development issues where they've been out of line. That's why I'm working on roads. That's why I'm working on water for our Highland Lakes, and I've done a lot of that over the course of my 3 terms, and will continue to work on that. And I'm, pushing back against the city of Austin is kind of a badge of honor, and I do that. I'm the only one in Travis County that will do it and has done it, and we will continue to push back against against Austin so that affordability in the city of Austin is good, and because it's gotten out of hand. There's no question about that. And so there's a lot more to being a state representative than just the state issues. There's a lot of local stuff that has to be done.
Well, Mike, you're exactly right. We do get the short end of the stick. I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm not going to be bashful at all about saying that. We do get the short end of the stick. And if you're happy with your tax bills, if you're happy with your representation at the state level, then by all means, vote for the incumbent. But I think it's time for a change. I'm tired of getting left behind by the rest of the state. I'm tired of being ignored. I'm tired of being governed by liberal Democrats. I'm tired of playing footsie with liberal Democrats. And it's time to stand up and fight. And that's why I'm doing this. It is time to stand up and be vocal and energetic and passionate about limited government. It's time to be articulate about limited government. We need a passionate advocate for this at the state level, because this is the only House seat that's going to go Republican anytime soon. It's the only Republican seat in Travis County, so we better get it right. So if you're happy with the way things are going, by all means, vote for the incumbent.
Thank you both.
Again, going back to my question of single-member districts, city council level in Leander, we've gotten calls from some Leander folks, and they get the same feeling that all council members live in a certain area of that community. But what's your position, or if it was brought up to you, would you sponsor something like that or visit it?
Well, I actually filed legislation my first session to try to force Austin into single-member districts. And I'd like to think that, along with the other pressure that they received, finally got them to a 10-1 deal. So I support single-member districts when it comes to city government.
Well, I know a little bit about 10-1, having been a candidate in 10-1, having fought those battles. And, I fought to get 10-1 on the ballot, and we fought to get it through, and now it's working pretty well. And so I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of single-member districts. I think that it's a much preferable, especially when a city grows to a certain size, is much preferable to than the at-large system. So I support it, absolutely.
We have another question from the audience. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ed.
Okay, since the question of the speaker has been raised already, I'll just go ahead. I have a question about that as it relates specifically to the property tax issue. For Representative Workman, my question is, you said you wanted to work on appraisal reform next session. Last session, Representative Elkins filed HB 365, which would have worked to fix the appraisal system, and it was referred to Dennis Bonin's the Ways and Means Committee, where Dennis Bonin, who was handpicked for that role by Joe Strauss, killed it without a hearing. My question for you is, why should we expect anything different next session? For Jay Wiley, my question for you is, you said Joe Strauss doesn't care about property tax relief. Can you elaborate that and say why you feel that way?
Well, I say that about Joe Strauss because they pushed tooth and nail for sales tax relief over property tax relief. And only at the last minute, when conservative grassroots rose up, when the Senate rose up and say, no, we absolutely need property tax relief, did the House buckle. Now, I have a letter right here from the Texas House, and this has your name on it, Paul. You signed on to property tax relief over sales tax relief. And I think the voters deserve an explanation for why you support keeping this burdensome property tax relief, this burdensome property tax system in place. I think we deserve an answer on that.
Jay, I've already answered that. I'm not going to answer that again.
Well, that's a shame.
Well, I answered it. You asked me and I told you.
Going to school choice, I see not a contradiction, but a kind of interesting mix. Because in school choice, we're strong advocate of school choice and have been, our program, we've been part of the National School Choice Day every January for the last 3 years, and we've had rallies at the state capitol. But here's the interesting thing, is that while there are strong immigration policy issues that are negative, if you will, to the immigration community, yet on the other hand, when you go to charter schools, guess who's the majority in those charter schools? Children of undocumented parents in this community. So I'm trying to understand, if someone can explain to me.
Well, it's very simple. I mean, we have economic magnets in place, like sanctuary cities, that draw people in. And just like Paul Workman's bill that would give Texas ID cards to illegal aliens and establish a guest worker program for illegal aliens, these are all economic magnets. We need to stop the economic magnets, build a wall, and send people back in an orderly way. We're not talking about taking T-shirt cannons and shooting them across the Rio Grande. No one's talking about doing that.
But you're talking about all illegal immigrants, not just Mexicans or Cubans.
Absolutely,
you're talking
absolutely.
About
Listen,
French, Germans,
of course,
Irish.
Absolutely. Listen,
Okay.
I'm half Hispanic myself, so I understand this issue. Okay, and let me tell you what: the Hispanic members of my family are more anti-illegal immigrant than I am.
Right.
So let me tell you.
But I just want to make sure that people understand that you're not targeting just one
Absolutely
segment
not.
of
Absolutely
immigration,
not. No.
immigrants. So
Absolutely
you could say, let's send all the Irish people back.
If anyone is here illegally,
Illegally,
they
let's
need to
send
go
all
back
the
home.
illegal Irish people
They
back.
need to go back to
And
Ireland.
they would send the same message to all
Absolutely.
illegal. Okay.
Back to
That's
Ireland.
what I was, okay.
I want to say I'm not going back to Ireland. I'm not going back.
You're here to stay.
I'm not going anywhere.
But what's your, and I know, okay, I'll go this. I know that you sponsored or supported license for undocumented, and the only
No,
thing.
I did not
what-
support licenses for.
Driver's license?
No, I did not.
Texas ID card.
Texas ID cards, that's what it was? Okay.
The
Then
bill
then I
provided
was-
for that.
Okay, then, excuse me, I was wrong then. But the only thing I say about the Texas driver's license is that, like Pokey mentioned, they're out there, one. It's interesting that you can get insurance without a license. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So, we're so close to them, to Irish immigrants, undocumented Irish immigrants, being able to get a driver's license. And before, they were given driver's license. So it's not something new.
When?
You know, back in the 70s, the 75, all they would do is take their birth certificate, go any DPS office, whether you were illegal from any part of the world, and Texas would give you, if you take a test, would give you a driver's license. They stopped doing it after 9/11. So, but today, because you cannot exit that many people in that short of a time to address, in a 2-year term, address the issue about them not being here illegally. I guess the question is, what do we do with those that are here and that are driving? And if I get hit, I'd rather get hit by someone that has a license and insurance, whether someone that doesn't have one and they take off. So, how do we address that issue?
Again, I think we enforce the law. We have mechanisms in place
Okay.
to send people back to their country of origin. We need to do that.
Okay.
We need to do that.
Round them up, huh?
Or just legalize them all like you want to do.
I don't want to legalize them all.
Well, yeah, that's what you build.
Okay, okay, now let's move back to education. You sponsored a bill, or I think you did sponsor a bill, where if you graduate and you're not college-bound, you wanted to make sure that there was technical
Right.
resources,
HB2.
HB2, so that if I'm a mechanic, and I love to be a mechanic, but I want to be able to have 5 mechanic shops. That was your goal, or your objective in that bill?
Well, I don't think that all students are destined to go to college. And I think that it's important that when a young person gets out of high school, that they've got a skill. And if they can't get it right out of high school, they certainly need to be able to go to a community college or a trade school and be able to get something that they can use for their career, not just have to be forced into college, which a lot of things, a lot of our programs have been, to where they would just force them into college, and a lot of times all that results in is debt, a lot of debt. And so I supported HB2 because it created a pathway for students to be able to get alternate education so that they're more career ready than just college ready.
What happened to that bill?
We got questions out here.
Okay.
What happened to that bill?
It passed and was signed into law.
Did it? Have we gotten more, because I was all for that bill when you put it through, but I didn't think anything happened to it after you filed it.
Oh, yeah, it was passed and signed into law, and the Texas Education Agency has been implementing that, and you're going to begin to see with this graduating class, I believe, the new foundation certificate with endorsements, which is part of what was established under that law. So you have different endorsements, whether it's math and science or industrial endorsement or fine arts, and so that's what the bill was partly designed to do, and it should be implemented soon.
There's not much difference between me and Paul on this issue. I mean, the only difference between us really on issues like this is really going to be energy level and getting things done. I mean, one thing we haven't talked about is the Second Amendment. I'm a very strong Second Amendment supporter. Paul unfortunately voted to give liberal college professors or liberal college administrators the right to establish gun-free zones on campuses, and I'd like to know why he would do that. I think it's the most dangerous place to be is a gun-free zone. So why would we allow liberal college administrators to establish gun-free zones? I think Paul deserves to, we deserve to hear from Paul.
Gun specialist is not here today.
He's not- I know, I wish-
Michael Cargill.
I wish Michael were here.
You got some more questions out
Yeah.
here, though. If
But-
we can hurry this
Well,
up.
if you'll answer this
Yeah.
question, then we can.
I'm happy to answer this. I've got an impeccable Second Amendment record, and endorsed by NRA and the Texas Rifle Association, an A rating. The reason that is important, Jay, and you know that, is that there are places on our university campuses where it's not appropriate to have guns. And that could be a biotechnology laboratory, it could be a nuclear reactor, it could be an MRI machine, it could be a child care center on our campuses. And I thought that it is appropriate that the college boards be able to create areas where it's just not the right place for guns to go. And so I supported that. I don't think that makes me any less of an less of a Second Amendment supporter.
Well, if you support the Second Amendment, I think you
I
support,
do support the Second Amendment.
support the right for people to protect themselves, no matter where they are. Second Amendment is very clear, no exceptions.
The Second Amendment gives you the right to bear arms.
So
It certainly does.
you would have exceptions to the Second Amendment.
I would say that there are areas where people should be allowed to say, no, you can't bring a gun in here.
Well, then we just
Just
differ
like
on
a,
that.
just
We
like
differ
a
on that.
private property. I mean, I should be able to tell people, no, you can't bring a gun on my private property.
Well, we're not talking about private property
Well,
here.
but you-
I mean, so what you're saying is Second Amendment, but with exceptions, and I just disagree.
Okay?
Gentlemen, we
We're
have
close
one
to
more
close
question from, we got one more time for one more quick question from the
Go on with the
audience,
Second Amendment forever.
and then,
We'll have closing
then
statements.
we'll have closing
Go ahead,
statements of
Laura.
2 minutes by each candidate.
Your name?
Hi, my name is Lori Granados. I do not have a gotcha question. I just want to know from both of you, I hope you are both keeping abreast of what is happening in Norway and Denmark and Germany with the Syrian refugees. And we already have a ton of them in Amarillo, a ton. They're evicting Iraqi and Afghani homeless vets from shelters to make room for these young men who are coming here just to make trouble for us. Will both of you, are both of you amenable or open to coming up with some way to address the issues that are arising in those countries and prevent that type of lawlessness? I mean, they go on rape rampages and accost women in the streets, and we're actually seeing French men carrying guns to defend women on the street. I mean, I never thought I'd see the day that would happen, but I just want to know, will both of you be amenable and look into seeing how we can shore up protection for Texas, since that is so important?
Absolutely.
Them Mexicans start to look pretty good every day.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly support Governor Abbott's position not to allow Syrian refugees to come into the state of Texas, and we need to make sure that we're not allowing that group of people coming over here. In particular, when there are Christians in Syria who are being persecuted, and we're not considering them coming in, we're just considering the general population over there, and we need to make sure they don't come in here, that's for
They're
sure.
already here.
Some of them are, but we need to stop.
What will you do?
I'm not sure I understand your question. What would I do about
What will you do
what?
about the ones that are already here that,
Well, they need to be deported. They need to be sent back to their
So
country.
round them up then, Paul. We want to round them up, right?
Well, we're not talking about, but a few of those, Jay, and they're terrorists. And so we would round
The
them up.
point is, and this is something that Paul doesn't seem to understand, is that we don't know who's here. We don't know who's the good guys and the bad guys. We
That's
don't know.
exactly
We
right.
don't know who is coming over the border so they can go mow someone's grass or to blow you up and kill your family. We don't know. That's why we have laws and we have to enforce the laws. And when we have state representatives who are weak on this issue, it puts us all in peril. Because this is not just about dollars and cents, although it is about dollars and cents, it's also about security. And when we have state representatives like Paul Workman who don't understand that, we're in a grave situation here. So we better elect the right people.
We have 2 minutes.
2 minutes each?
We
Yeah,
have
probably
2
about 2
minutes
minutes
to
each.
go. We have 1 minute each to say why you should be elected over the other.
Am I-
Why you be the preferable
Okay.
person from that.
Well, again, thank you very much for having us tonight. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity to meet. Experience matters. In our system of government, we have a citizen legislature, and we're expected to have a real job, and I do. And I've been producing jobs for the state of Texas for a number of decades, and I think it's important. And I've used my experience in the past to make Texas a better place. And I believe that the experience that I've had as a business person creating jobs will continue to serve the citizens of District 47 well. And I appreciate the support that I've had in the past, and I'd ask for your vote again when we come up on March 1st.
Mr. Wiley?
Well, we're outnumbered in Travis County. So who we elect in these very precious few Republican seats, we need to make sure have the passion and the energy to be articulate advocates for limited government, passionate advocates for property tax relief. If you're happy with the way things are going, if you're happy with your tax bill, you should vote for the incumbent.
You got about 10 seconds.
It's time for a new way forward.
Don't forget to vote February 16th to the 26th, early vote.
I appreciate everybody coming out here on the Trailer Park Show. We hope. And we're off here. I want to thank the guy.